Welcome in, guys, to a special live edition of Arizona Crime Uncovered. If you shared this link, if you have been seeing what we have been teasing, we are covering the cases of Emily Pike, Rebekah Baptiste, and Zoriah Dodd. These were all kids that were known to the Department of Child Safety and have been murdered. Each case is very different, and this episode is going to take a look at the investigative and the criminal standpoint for each one of these different cases. And I do want to mention, we actually started an investigation that is called DCS State of Failure. This is here at ABC 15. And we are looking into the state's child welfare system. And we are taking a really hard look at each one of these cases and also going beyond that as well. But I wanted to mention that this specific stream is about the investigative and the criminal point we are at with all of these cases. And part of the reason why I wanted to do this was because I've heard from all of you, many of you asking about specifically Emily Pike's case. What is going on? Where is the case at this time? And why are there no arrests? Because there have been no arrests in the case. We have been in touch with the Gila County Sheriff's Office. We're going to get more into her case and what we have been able to learn. But we want to start with Rebekah Baptiste's case. Why? Because there are actually things that are happening right now. Richard Baptiste, Rebekah's father, and his girlfriend, Anicia Woods, they were back in court today for their arraignment. And Richard Baptiste, his arraignment is actually supposed to be starting at any time now. So I have some people that are watching for that. Anicia Woods, so far, she has pleaded not guilty in this case. And we want to go back quickly. We're going to have a live guest join us, but we first want to kind of break down the case for you. So to go back, Rebekah was found severely injured in Holbrook, Arizona at the end of July. She died a few days later. Her dad and his girlfriend had moved the family out of Phoenix to very rural Apache County, and that was pretty recent. We have heard from the 10-year-old school, we've covered that they repeatedly reached out to DCS with concerns of abuse and neglect. Now, like I said, we're going to bring in a guest to kind of discuss this case, where it's at legally. But we first want to take you back to last week. We had a preliminary hearing in this case. We want to play you some bites from that.
Say on behalf of your client, for those that are watching, for those that are going to hear what was said in that hearing.
It's just, I mean, that's the thing. Our country was based on an individual being presumed innocent, and it's hard when you have that much information. I would just encourage everyone to hold true to that presumption of innocence.
So that was, you were hearing from what was Richard Baptiste's attorney there. I don't think we had our full bite there with some of the video from court. We do have some of that posted to abc15.com, but we heard about the conditions of the yurt where this family was apparently living in Apache County. We heard more from the case agent, and you can find some of that again on abc15.com. And a reminder, we can take your questions as we are kind of breaking down each one of these cases. I do want to bring in Ben Taylor. He is an attorney here in the Valley. And I had so many people, Ben, who were talking to me about this preliminary hearing, thinking that it was a trial. Can you tell us what is a preliminary hearing and why we don't see it a lot in some of these high-profile murder cases that people watch here in the Valley?
Yeah. Yes, Ashley. A preliminary hearing basically is to determine whether or not this case still stays alive and moves forward. So the prosecutor gets to present evidence in front of the judge, gets to call a witness, usually a detective who's involved in this case, and they get to testify in front of the judge. The defense attorney who's representing the defendants get to come up and do a cross-examination. And at the end of the day, the judge will determine whether or not there's called probable cause. It doesn't mean innocence or guilt. It's just to determine whether or not there's probable cause for this case to move forward and stay alive through the system. You don't see this a lot in a high-profile case. A lot of times you see what people do is go grand jury. So the prosecutor can take this to a grand jury, which is mainly a secret proceeding with the prosecutor, the judge, and a witness, and the grand jury. And the grand jury will decide whether or not to move forward. But in this case, high-profile case, it's very rare that you see a preliminary hearing. So maybe the prosecutor wanted the audience and the whole world to see the evidence firsthand, but just to let the audience know Basically, this doesn't determine innocence or guilt. This determines probable cause and whether or not this case can move forward through the criminal justice system.
And we now know both Richard Baptiste and Anicia Woods, they're facing a murder charge and other charges, including child abuse and molestation. So we're going to watch how this all plays out in court. Obviously, we have Anicia Woods, who pleaded not guilty this morning. We're waiting for Richard Baptiste's arraignment as well. But we did hear in court when Anicia Woods was having her arraignment this morning that Richard Baptiste's attorney, who actually we just saw, might be withdrawing from this case. Why would that happen, and what will happen next?
Yes, so an attorney can file a motion and say, Judge, I need to withdraw from this case. It could be from various reasons. Maybe there's a conflict with the client. Maybe say they have vacation plans and they just can't do this case for the vacation, or maybe they're just too busy to do the case. But a lot of times when you see an attorney withdraw from a case, a lot of times behind the scenes is because there's some sort of conflict with their client. I can't say that in this case, but say the client got mad because they were, held to go forward, and maybe there was a big argument, and the client complains, and sometimes the attorney's like, "Hey, I can't represent you. We're not getting along here. You might need to find a new attorney." So ultimately, this attorney could file a motion to withdraw. What the judge will then do is appoint a new attorney, or they can go by themselves, which is called pro se, which you've seen in some other defendants. They can represent themselves. But a lot of times when there's a conflict between the attorney and the client, sometimes the attorney will withdraw, and the defendant will either have to hire a new attorney or get a new attorney appointed to represent them.
Yeah. We'll wait to see what happens there. I do want to also ask you about, there was a motion for a joinder, so to join both defendants' cases here together moving forward. Why would prosecutors want that?
It makes it easier for the prosecutor. It saves time. It saves money when you have two defendants in the courtroom at the same time. Like today's Monday, right? So you don't want to have to come here Monday and then have to come back next week for the other defendant. The prosecutor wants to have everybody in the same room at the same time and prosecute and do the trial. So that way you're not doing two different trials on the case. So a lot of times you will see the prosecutor ask for both cases to be joined. But then you might see the defense attorney file a motion to separate the cases. Because if you have a client who's less culpable or say 100% innocent and you're like, the other person did it, and you might point the finger at the other person, then you might have to do a motion as a defense attorney to do a separate case. And I want to bring my client separately because my client is innocent. The other person might be guilty. So let's do these cases separately. So you might see that in the future too.
I heard, like I've been telling you, from so many people that were thinking that, oh my goodness, we're moving forward with this case. Here's the trial. What is going to happen next? But these things and the court process moves much slower than that. So we have some court dates that they're setting at their arraignment. And we know that Anicia Woods' next court date is on September 22nd. We're going to wait to see. We're still waiting for Richard Baptiste's arraignment. But what happens from here? Because it's going to take some time for this.
Oh, yes. A lot of people watch TV and they see a case within a half hour or hour show from TV. In real life, especially alleged murder case, these cases can last for 1, 2, 3, or even more years. So this is going to take time. More evidence will come out. More witnesses will come out. And I'll be surprised if this case even makes it to trial within the next year or two, if that. Or they can take a plea agreement. If they feel like they're guilty, the prosecutor could offer them a plea agreement. And they can plead guilty at any time if they are offered a plea agreement. So in the future, we'll either see them take a plea agreement and plead guilty or exercise their right to trial and go to trial in a couple of years.
Yeah, we'll wait to see. This case involves so many different agencies. We've requested records from Phoenix Police, DPS, Apache County. We've gotten some records back from Navajo County. So we're going to watch this all play out. And like you said, it's going to take some time. Thank you so much, Ben Taylor, for joining us on this stream. We really appreciate it. We're going to switch gears now from Rebekah Baptiste to Emily Pike. So we appreciate you joining us again, Ben. I have heard from so many of you, and I'm going to be checking comments here throughout. So please comment. If you have a question, please let us know. I've heard from so many of you about Emily Pike's case. What is going on? How are you staying up to date with things? Are you asking questions? Yes, we are here at ABC 15 continuing to stay in touch with the Gila County Sheriff's Office, everyone we can when it comes to Emily's case. And I do want to rewind to kind of set the scene for you guys. Emily Pike was 14 years old when she was reported missing from her Mesa group home. That group home is licensed by the state, even though she was in the care of Tribal Social Services. Now, a few weeks later in February, she was found killed off the US 60 northeast of Globe, obviously so far away from where Mesa is. And we have been tracking this case ever since. We know that right now we have not been told that there is a person of interest or a suspect in this case. And that has really, really concerned a lot of people. And so I took that question and people's concerns about this potentially becoming a cold case to the Gila County Sheriff's Office. But we have also been staying in touch with Emily's family, Emily's uncle, Emily's mom, and others as well. So we want to play you a little bit of our most recent interview with Ulrich Pike. He is Emily's uncle, and we were able to sit down with him.
Got to let everybody know that she mattered and that we want answers. We want the killer to be fined or killers, so no one else would have to go through this. That's closure. Closure is only happens when we find whoever did this. People start to say, you need to put it behind you. How can you do that when there's other cases out there, not just Emily's case? There's a lot of MMIW, MMIP cases out there, not just for Native Americans. There's others, other nationalities that have cold cases like this. And her story staying in the light also helps those cases, and that's what people need to understand. It's not just for her, it's for everybody else.
So there you go, hearing from Emily Pike's uncle. I do want to let you know I've been in touch with her mom as well, messaging back and forth. And she wants to thank everyone out there fighting for justice for her daughter, the hard work people are putting in, changing laws, changing the way that group homes security. She was actually at the Capitol for a meeting that happened just last week involving DCS. They spoke a lot about group homes, communications with tribal leadership. So she's thanking everyone for that, for making Indigenous lives matter. That's what she says. She's thanking everyone from the bottom of her heart. So we're staying in touch with her as well. So these are the most common questions that I get on the case. Is ABC 15 following up? Yes, we are following up. Like I said, we're reaching out to the Gila County Sheriff's Office once a week, bi-weekly sometimes. And I heard from you guys that there was concern that Emily Pike's case was going cold. So I sent that question in, and I want to tell you what they told me. They said, I can tell you with certainty that Emily Pike's case has not moved into a cold case category. And investigators are still following up on evidence and leads. They're not able to go into detail on what that is currently at this time. But we do know we've had some other statements from them, some other, things that we have gotten from them in terms of releases. And we are watching to see what happens with the investigation. I also want to bring up, I had a ton of messages about this case last week. And some of it was because there were rumors swirling about what was going on with the case. Were there arrests? Were there things that were found? And I do want to know, because let you know, the San Carlos Apache Police Department actually put out a statement on this case saying that they were aware that some of this was spreading through social media. And they wanted to remind the public that this is an active and open investigation, and that the video that was circulating on social media and some of these rumors were false information. So we continue to follow up with all of the different law enforcement agencies that are part of the task force on this case. Of course, it's being led by the Gila County Sheriff's Office. And like they said this is not moved into a cold case category, and they're still following up on evidence and leads. And we did get a release from them saying, a few months ago that they had served some search warrants. We are waiting to hear any kind of an update. And I do want to let you know, we have reached out to the Gila County Sheriff's Office for an interview with the sheriff. We've done that multiple times, but we have been told that they are not doing interviews on this case. We're going to continue to ask, though, because we do at some point want to be able to do that interview with them. I do want to let you know we were able to send some of the releases, the information that we have on this case to Brad Garrett. He's a former FBI agent, so he's not working with the FBI now because we know that the FBI is involved in this case. So he has the information that we have, and we were able to put that in front of him. Right now, he is a crime and terrorism analyst for ABC. So we wanted to get his take on the case when it came to what we know so far. So I want to play you some of our discussion with him. When it comes to data, we have heard from the Gila County Sheriff's Office multiple times now that they're going over data, and we've kind of been racking our heads. What could that data be? I mean, what kind of data could they be looking at?
So if you take locations where obviously her remains were found at a location away from where she originally left from, can they successfully pull down cell phone data around that particular location? Maybe. It could give them some indicators as to who was at least maybe around her at the time. Either something happened at that location or it happened someplace else. Now, if they got lucky and hit on a cell phone that they think is a possibility, then they might be able to backtrack it. Where was it prior to a signal near her remains, that kind of thing. Data from CCTV at various locations between the place that she left from and where she was ultimately found. You just never know. It really can take a lot of work, because think about the number of potential private cameras, not knowing, obviously, did somebody pick her up and harm her? Did they harm her where she was found? But all that becomes important as to the movement of people. And was she at some 7-Eleven 2 miles away? Maybe, maybe not, but you have to check all those things.
I keep, having people ask, it's been 6 months. They were able to find her. They find her in these garbage bags. Isn't there DNA that can help lead to a suspect? How long can it take, though, to get DNA from a scene and actually get some kind of information back from it?
So the issues with DNA are because people are educated by what they see basically in television shows where you have DNA in 12 seconds. And the problem is, how good is the DNA? How difficult is it to actually get a representative sample, to actually do an analysis? All that plays into it. And the other reality is that crime labs, in particular when it comes to DNA analysis, are super backed up. And so it may be a situation of them just getting to her case. Who knows? But it's going to be a combination of all of the above. And again, based on what's in public source, it looks like they have been pretty active in this case in recent times as far as searches, etc. So they may well be on to possibilities here, hopefully, of what actually happened to her.
So there you go, Brad Garrett, and we're going to have more from him in the coming days. We're going to have more on this case. I do want to let you know, just before we close this out, that what I was talking about with search warrants, we actually got from the Gila County Sheriff's Office in June, and they said that there was search warrant served on a residential structure, a vehicle, and a storage trailer. Items were seized from those locations and sent to a lab for analysis to determine if there's any links to Emily Pike's case. So we have more on that posted on abc15.com. I do want to get to Zoriah Dodd, because this is another case that we are tracking. Zoriah Dodd, 16 years old, 22 weeks pregnant, when she was found shot and killed in a West Phoenix park on July 5th. Now, this all happened shortly after she went missing from a surprise group home. According to the probable cause statement that was filed in court, police say Dodd told her DCS caseworker she was scared into having sex with the man who police say now had her killed. So police in July announced that they had arrested 18-year-old Jacree James Gillette, 36-year-old Jarrell Davis. They were taken into custody. Officials have determined that Davis was the father of Dodd's unborn child. We do have some interviews that we want to play for you as we've covered this case, and then we're going to close out with what we know, what we're working on.
She was pregnant, and we're thinking, a little boy who's 15, 16. But no, a 30-something man is what we had got back.
Two monsters got together and decided that, for whatever reason they chose to do this, they planned this murder out and carried it out. And it's tragic all around.
Why does there need to keep occurring death after death after death?
But now hearing all of this, that she was reaching out, it hurts me, because it's like all of this could have been prevented.
We haven't done enough, and we haven't said enough. Change needs to happen.
So here's what we're following up on. The Department of Child Safety said they reported an incident with a gun to police in April 2025. They told us, the department, that they reported that to Phoenix police, but a forensic interview was not scheduled for 3 months. And the forensic interview never happened because Dodd was killed. So we have asked Phoenix police to confirm that they took this report. We haven't heard back yet. They have not confirmed that they took it, or really many details. And this is not the only case that Davis is facing charges in, one of those two that have been arrested. So there's a status conference on the 11th of this month. We have requested the most recent court documents. I've gone through those court documents, and really this is just the court process playing out. And these two men did have a not guilty arraignment already. And so really all of this is going to keep moving forward through the court process. We have requested public records. And really in many of these cases, we are waiting for some of these records to come back. We're going to continue our commitment to cover all of these three cases from the DCS standpoint and also from a criminal standpoint. And we're going to post all of those updates. I want to thank you guys so much for joining us, being a part of this discussion. Let me know if you have questions. You can message me personally on Facebook. You can email me as well. And thank you so much for joining us. Let us know if you have questions.